Here in '78, he debuted a brand new look in Top Fuel racing. This is his new car. Let's compare it with his old car. Look at the wing placement, look at the engine placement, look at the driver placement, the general configuration of the body. Now compare this with the 1978 version. Notice how low the wing sits above the rear wheels. The engine placement itself much further out from the rear end. The configuration of the body designed to slip through the air a little better. A windscreen designed to protect Beck himself from the blast of air at over 230 miles an hour. In the first round of racing, Gary met up against the defending champion, Dennis Baca.
For a change, as our Fram Corporation judges strolled through the pits looking for best engineered car, they didn't have to seek out the subtleties. It was plenty obvious right on top of the engine. 3 superchargers on the Golden Gator from Fort Lauderdale. Here's driver Chase Knight to explain it.
Steve, we use the conventional supercharger to get the car moving. Once the clutch is out, there's a load on the motor, the turbochargers take over and carry it on down the track.
How much money and time's gone into this project?
Steve, there's 6 years in it right now, and money, you could say $70,000 if you wanted.
And it runs well, qualified in the top half of the field. Back to you, Dave, and more Sports Nationals competition.
Thank you, Ken. The purpose of any drag racing vehicle is to accelerate the quarter mile, and no vehicle does that better than the unlimited category known as the Top Fuel Dragster. It's a 2,000 horsepower all aluminum racing engine, a massive set of rear tires, aerodynamic wings, a lightweight body, and about 20 feet of chrome moly tubing, all tied together to make it the fastest accelerating vehicle in the world.
Jeb Allen, the defending champion at this Summer Nationals. He won it way back in 1972 when he was only 18 years of age. It's against Bobby Hilton driving for Jim and Allison Lee. Hilton at the wheel of one of the more unique machines in all of drag racing, this semi-full-bodied, semi-streamliner car of the Lees. Jeb Allen, a more conventional rear-engine top-fuel dragster. The defending champ gets a break in this round as Bobby Hilton, something goes wrong with the Jim and Allison Lee car. He coasts the sleek, streamlined machine across the finish line. Jeb Allen not hurting those parts in the last 100 feet. He only records a 6.13 second elapsed time, but he gets the all-important win as Bobby Hilton breaks. And as we saw a moment ago on Larry Minor's car, Joe Amato sporting funny car tires. Steve Evans asked him why.
It's got to seem a little strange to you still sitting in the cockpit and looking out at these great big funny car style front wheels.
Well, it's the safety factor, Steve. Definitely they're probably going to slow the car down a little bit on the speed and maybe even on the ET because it's a rolling weight which is heavier by about 14 pounds compared to the tires we were running. But and there's more drag on the ground with the tires, but it's a safety factor. And we ran 263.92, which set the first leg of the record, and we pitched the tire off, broke this whole A-frame off the car, and almost crashed the car. And you know, it's no good. You can't come back the second round if you don't have the car intact. You know, that's important.
A total purse topping $1 million is up for grabs, and sometimes racers will try anything to win this race. In Top Fuel qualifying, Phil Hobbs was trying an aerodynamic experiment that did away with a conventional wing. Hobbs was in trouble from the very start.
Hello, everyone. I'm Steve Evans. Since the very beginning of Top Fuel Dragster racing, the emphasis has always been right here, on the motor. Bigger and bigger engines, larger superchargers, more complex and refined fuel systems to ram even more of that nitromethane in. Bottom line, power. Well, as that power becomes increasingly difficult to find, some drivers are exploring new ground. This is Don Garlett's Swamp Rat 30, debuting here at Gainesville this weekend. Now, Don has added this very sleek Lexan canopy to the car to hopefully cheat the win. Rat under glass, if you will. But the big news, as far as aerodynamics are concerned, is possibly up here at the front of the car. Now, this is the most unusual front-end configuration that we have ever seen. Certainly the narrowest track, and also tiny, tiny front wheels, only 13 inches. Everybody else's are about 22. Specially built front wheels that don't even have tires on them, just kind of an industrial-style V-belt. Now, this whole front body piece is carbon fiber and only weighs 4 pounds. And Don says that its shape will punch a hole in the wind that he's going to drive right through, not just to 270, but 280 miles per hour.
Well, Steve, as you well know, guys have been trying streamlining almost from the origins of the sport of drag racing. It hadn't worked too well. In fact, your pal Don Garlitz used it in 1972 and scared himself a lot simply because the cars tended to fly. Well, over the years, we've learned a great deal about aerodynamics in race cars, especially in Formula One and Indianapolis-type racing. And that is exactly where Gary Ormsby went when he designed this beautiful new body for his top fuel dragster that he brought to the Winter Nationals in Pomona. Now, you'll remember that they had some problems there. A body flex at Pomona in qualifying caused the magneto to break up, and he had a giant blower fire. But since then, it's been cured. The race car now is back here and in full trim with a full Kevlar body. In fact, it's such an Indianapolis-type car that this windshield actually comes from a March Indy car, the actual windshield. But the important part about the body is this lip down here that causes a whole lot of downforce to work on the edges of the automobile. It has a full belly pan, has wings up front, all sorts of sophisticated aerodynamics. But I think the important part about this particular race car is that Gary tells me that it's only the beginning.
Technology marches on as this is the newest top fuel dragster to be seen on the circuit, driven by GWYNN, an amazing long machine coming up to the line with a young 24-year-old GWYNN at the helm. GWYNN is the defending champion here, and his car has been the talk of the pits. Steve has more.
A year ago, GWYNN won this race with a very simple, straightforward little family race car. Well, this year's machine is anything but simple and far from little. Take a look. This is the longest top fuel dragster ever built. The wheelbase is 25 feet. There are shorter city buses than this. Now, up front, Darrell has chosen to go with the aircraft-style front wheels pioneered by Don Garlitz, very nicely streamlined with the fuel tank up front. Now, this is called a gurney flap, and it was added after shakedown runs proved that the car wanted a wheel stand about 400 feet out. Pretty scary. Some louvers here to reduce any pressure that may build up under the body. Now, because the car is so long, Darrell had it built very strong, and strong can mean heavy. This car is 300 pounds over NHRA's minimum weight. It's going to take a lot of horsepower to push it along. The canopy is completely enclosed, but for those of you who've become fond of that ritual handshake between Darrell and his dad, Jerry, not to worry. There's a little daddy door here.
Advancements in technology and in personality.
It was in that first round race that Ormsby smoked the tires, but the big story was Joe AMATO and his top speed. AMATO set a new national record of over 279 miles an hour, making him the fastest driver ever in the sport of drag racing.
Coming up next was the new car of Joe AMATO. Always trying something new, AMATO's car got a close-up look from Steve.
The most interesting design feature on the nose of Joe AMATO's new top fuel dragster are these ground effects tunnels on either side. Air is channeled from underneath the car through these tunnels, and that provides downforce. Also different on Joe's car is this little lip you see around the body, much like the funny cars use, again to provide downforce. Now you'll notice the nose comes to a peak there. Well, that's for a purpose. That is to block the electronic beam at the starting line. Also notice that the nose is exactly as wide as the rear track of the car. So once you punch that hole in the air, you drive the entire car through it. You don't have any interruption from the rear tires. Now, Joe knows that all this works. He knows that there's 5 pounds of downforce, even if the front end is 2 feet in the air, because he wind tunnel tested all of this. Well, kind of a wind tunnel. He cut the half off an old car, mounted the nose, built a platform on the roof of a pickup truck, applied pressure sensors, and drove 100 miles an hour in the pickup truck. So he figures he got about $10,000 worth of wind tunnel time for $3 worth of gasoline.
But the real news from Houston came courtesy of Joe AMATO, who brought out his experimental ground effect package during qualifying and ran a 508 without a rear wing.
When we first put this rig on there, we started with the big wing, and the car was very stable as far as going down the track. And as we kept lowering the wing and making the wing smaller on it, it did appear to have a hunt for the track. It was, you know, side to side. It would move around quite a bit more. So we really did expect it to have a little bit more, but who knew how much it was going to be. We just hoped that it wasn't too much from the handle, and it was about as much as it could get.
It needed some kind of a dorsal fin or something to keep the car straighter, I think, because it seemed like once it started going sideways, it would go easy sideways, versus when the wing's on there, it has a more straight direction. So I'm sure they'll go back to the drawing board, and Timmy and Mike will make up something that'll make it better.
And that's what's hot.